Good morning, everyone. I'm Ralph Izzo, CEO and Chairman of PSEG. Thank you for joining us today to commemorate the completion of our Sewaren switching station and the beginning of construction of our Sewaren combined cycle gas turbine plant. Special thanks to Governor Christie, Senate President Sweeney, and Mayor McCormick for joining us as well. It's hard to believe that it was almost 4 years ago when this entire site was flooded by the storm surge from Superstorm Sandy. The switching station was knocked out, critical businesses were without electricity, refineries couldn't operate. And while I would grade the employees at PSEG an A+ for their restoration work, there's no question that we would all been a lot better off if no one had lost power to begin with. So Sewaren Switch is the completion of our first substation where we've raised it to increase the resiliency of the switching station, all out of a PSEG Energy Strong program approved by the BPU. And I must tell you that keeping the wires operating is not the only ingredient that's essential for resiliency in a reliable grid. It also has to do with whether or not the power plants can operate to produce the electricity. The power plant behind me, the Sewaren station, is 65 years old, and we're replacing it with state-of-the-art technology, without question, best-in-class efficiency, burning clean fuel natural gas. So I want to congratulate some of the PSEG team members who were responsible for this. Kim Hahnemann, who leads our transmission group, Bill Levis and Rich Lopriori, who lead our fossil group, and Kevin Sellers, who leads the construction effort here. But no work like this can be done alone by the company. We've had some essential partners in getting this done. Everyone knows and is fully aware of the commitment Governor Christie has to a vibrant economy, and clearly the economic development benefits of a project like this speak for themselves. Senate President Sweeney, there's no finer champion of infrastructure in the state of New Jersey, and he's been supportive of Energy Strong in all of our efforts to date. And Mayor McCormick, you certainly know how to make your company feel like a partner with the township. Clearly, we've had many construction partners, many other leaders in the labor unions and throughout state government. I'd like to recognize DEP Commissioner Bob Martin, BPU President Rich Moroz, Fletch Kramer, our contractor on the site, as well as Nelson Ferreira, who's doing all of the below-ground work for us here at the generating station. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Buddy Thoman, our own head of the IBW Local 94. And now I'd like to introduce someone who needs no introduction. Please join me in welcoming Governor Chris Christie.
Thank you, Ralph. Good morning, everybody. Good to be here with the Senate President and with Mayor McCormick. I remember when we first partnered, the three of us together, to work with PSE&G to make sure that this happened. I wouldn't have been able to do it without the partnership of the Senate President and the Mayor. And so these are the good things that we get to do together that help to not only help a municipality with what's happening here in Woodbridge, but I'm convinced that this type of positive investment by the private sector is what helps to continue to make our state an attractive place for people to live and to do business. Energy reliability is something that we learned about in a significant way, as Ralph mentioned, during Hurricane Sandy. And I would also give his folks an A+ for what they did in helping us recover from that. And I'm happy to be here today. I also want to thank the BPU President, Rich Moroz, and my DP Commissioner, Bob Martin. They both have been integral parts of my cabinet, integral parts of the plans that we have to continue to make ourselves more resilient post-Sandy, and to make sure that we have reliable energy sources throughout the state for our residents and for our business. And that's why being here for this new energy-efficient power station and the dedication of the newly upgraded switching station that flooded during Superstorm Sandy is such an accomplishment for the people of this state, and something that's a real good indicator of how we've recovered from Sandy and what it means for our future. Our administration has been working hard to try to make sure that resilience was the first thing we looked at in the post-Sandy period. You may remember at the height of the storm, over 2.7 million households and businesses across impacted areas of New Jersey were without power, and that 1.98 million of those affected were customers of PSEG. Switching stations like the one we're dedicating this morning, substations and transmission lines were damaged in some way by the storm through the commitment and dedication of the workers who did the work. Like the men standing behind me, 90% of our residents had their power restored within 9 days after Sandy. It's a pretty extraordinary record. At the time, the entire Sewaren area of Woodbridge was devastated by Sandy's storm surge, I know Mayor McCormick remembers those very, very difficult days. Not only were 100,000 people in Woodbridge and the surrounding areas affected, but our refineries also were closed. Critical component of New Jersey's economy, and something that was enormously problematic in getting everything else running once again. New Jersey has to establish a new level of resiliency to natural disasters, and we're working with energy companies like PSEG to harden our systems, make them less susceptible to storm damage. After Sandy, PSEG got power back to the area quickly as part of long-term storm recovery efforts. Companies recognize the need to update their grids to protect against future weather events. PSEG developed its Energy Strong program, a $1.2 million initiative designed to strengthen its infrastructure in the wake of Sandy. One part of the program, they've invested $120 million to raise and upgrade the station, harden the surrounding distribution and transmission infrastructure, and to make sure it can withstand further storms for years to come. We're very happy that work was completed recently. It's the first station to be placed into service, I believe, as part of PSEG's Energy Strong program, and we're happy about that. Most importantly, it's not the only investment they're making here, as Ralph alluded to. In 2 years, this entire area around us will be covered by a new, cleaner, more efficient natural gas plant, Seawarren 7. This construction is creating hundreds of well-paying, skilled jobs, additional tax revenue for the state, and ensuring that homes and businesses in this area have a reliable source of power for decades to come. Together, these upgrades make us better as a state, and that's what we need to be concerned about. In the end, nothing will ever be perfect, and there will always be times when we're challenged by Mother Nature. But we learned an extraordinary amount 3.5 years ago. I want to point out to people once again that in Mississippi, in Louisiana, they are still recovering from Katrina. They still have entire neighborhoods that are empty. They still have infrastructure that's not rebuilt. And 3.5 years after the second worst natural disaster in American history, New Jersey is rebuilt. We have almost all of our residents back into their homes 3.5 years after 365,000 homes were destroyed in a 24-hour period. We have infrastructure not only rebuilt and operating, that's an old story, that's been happening for years, but now you're seeing the outgrowth of it, where we're making ourselves better and stronger post-Sandy than we were before. This is a record that folks will look back on and see that doing that in 3.5 years is extraordinary when compared to the most comparable storm we had in this country, which is Katrina, which a decade later, much of what we've already done here in New Jersey in 3.5 years is still not done in Mississippi and Louisiana. So we couldn't do that without partners in the legislature, without partners in the executive branch, but also without our partners in the private sector. So Ralph, thank you for providing the leadership at PSEG that made it possible to do these things. Thanks to our friends in the trade unions, who their men and women have stood up, not only as victims of Sandy, as many of them were, but they got back right to work because they knew that helping to rebuild what they were helping to rebuild were going to help themselves and their neighbors and their friends as well. And to thank all of our friends in the construction business who continue to stand ready to work with a willing government to be able to build greater infrastructure in the state and to make the state the envy of others who have gone through some of the challenges we've gone through and recovered very, very well. So, Ralph, thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's great to see projects started and projects completed, and I look forward to seeing this one done in a couple of years. Thank you all for coming.
And no one likes to dwell on the past, but it's been a privilege for me over these past 3 years to talk about not only the governor's leadership during the storm, but all of his efforts post-storm to make us truly stronger than the storm. And our next speaker also does not need introduction. There's probably no bigger champion, certainly of energy infrastructure and infrastructure in general, than our Senate President Steve Sweeney.
Thanks, Rick. It's actually a gorgeous day, too. We can't go wrong. Ralph, first, thanking you for your leadership. As the governor said, it takes real partners, but it also takes people with vision to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past and we improve our utilities to a way that when the storms hit, that the power doesn't go out. And, Governor Christie, his leadership during Sandy was remarkable. And the lessons we learned to make sure we didn't repeat them, taking our agencies with Commissioner Martin and Commissioner Morose here, to make sure that we do things right going forward. It is one hell of an example compared to the other parts of the country. I want to thank Mayor McCormick, who, you know, is a mayor that makes everyone feel welcome, and they do a great job. To the Freeholder Director, Ron Rios, to Assemblyman, my partner, Joe Egan, in the legislature, and Bill Mullen, the President of the Building Trades, representing all the unions that are here today. We have to look at infrastructure as a way to really improve the economy of the state. Energy Strong is something I greatly believe in because it's improving the reliability, so we give predictability to businesses. Businesses aren't going to come places where you have 75-year-old power plants that are inefficient, costing more money than they should. So we need to make these investments to modernize, to capture the efficiencies of modern technology and put people to work. There's going to be hundreds of people going to work here. That's a good thing for the economy of this state. That's why I think the governor and I really wholeheartedly agree on making investments in infrastructure like this so that we can put people back to work, but really create a more reliable state. So when the next Sandy comes, because the environment that I grew up in, we're about the same age, isn't the New Jersey I grew up when I was a kid. I didn't remember tornadoes and hurricanes and earthquakes. You know, the world is changing, and we need to change with it. And Ralph, with your leadership, with PSEG leading the way, you know, we can strengthen our economy, improve our infrastructure, and it's a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senate President. And now, for the Mayor of Woodbridge, John, there's been no finer partner in terms of facilitating the work and getting the local cooperation of the community. Thank you for being here. Please welcome Mayor McCormick.
Thank you. Usually in my press conferences, I get to go first and everybody else has to adjust their speech. It's not much fun going last, so I apologize for the repetition. I would like to start by thanking Governor Chris Christie for once again coming to Woodbridge for today's event and for everything he and the state have done to make this groundbreaking possible. The level of cooperation from state departments and agencies in handling projects in Woodbridge Township has been outstanding for many, many years. The Department of Environmental Protection has been unbelievable in forwarding economic development in our township, and in particular, the Board of Public Utilities has gone above and beyond in making this power plant possible. We get our calls answered, and we get our issues dealt with, and the typical state bureaucracy has been eliminated under your leadership, Governor, so thank you once again for all you have done for Woodbridge Township. As President Izzo said, Senate President Sweeney's support has been instrumental in getting this project off the ground. This is our second clean energy generating station thanks to the Senator's efforts, and we would love to have more. He in particular is very proud of the 350 union construction jobs that will be created here. These jobs and several dozen permanent jobs will bring an economic boost to our local businesses as these employees dine and shop in Woodbridge. This project will also produce $50 million in tax revenues to our township in the next 30 years, making PSEG one of the top 10 taxpayers in Woodbridge, and we will invest your money wisely. I would like to thank Carolyn Orlick, the head of our redevelopment agency, and Marta Lefsky, our planning director, otherwise known as my right arm and my left arm, for their work so far and for the many, many hours they will spend seeing this project through to the end. And of course, I would like to thank Ralph Izzo and PSEG for their continued commitment to Woodbridge Township. The company has spent over $125 million here since Superstorm Sandy, and we have continued to support their energy strong efforts. They are about to spend another $600 million here, which is an astronomical investment in Woodbridge. Unlike many of our neighbors, we were very satisfied with PSEG's response to Sandy and Irene and other weather situations here in town. The company kept us informed as to progress in restoring power, they answered our calls instantly, and they treated our residents fairly and with respect. I had Frank Lucchese and Jack Bridges on speed dial, and I truly appreciate the relationship that I personally have with PSEG and that our entire township enjoys also. The company and your employees have participated in many township charitable events, and we look forward to many, many more years of working together for the benefit of the residents of Woodbridge Township. Thank you very much.
So PSEG invests about $3 billion a year in capital projects of this type, about $2.5 billion a year in New Jersey. So we're constantly doing work on our infrastructure. I must admit, typically we don't have this kind of turnout when we celebrate the beginning of construction. So I have to thank our guests, the governor, the Senate President, and Mayor, for bringing attention to this critical issue. And now, gentlemen, let's go move some dirt.